Hey guys, let's talk chatterbaits. Fall is here, so I thought it was a good time to talk about the chatterbait. Now for me, the chatterbait, I love to pull this thing out first thing in the spring. I love to use it in the fall. I probably don't use it in the summer nearly as much as I should because it is so versatile. But I really love the chatterbait in the spring and in the fall. And with fall coming out, I thought it was a good time to talk about this. For me, the chatterbait almost replaces the spinnerbait nowadays. I'm not saying it's totally. I'll use the spinnerbait a little, but I really love to use the chatterbait, and I'll use that far more often now than I will the spinnerbait. Size-wise, I like a 3/8 ounce chatterbait. Basically, I like to throw a 3/8 ounce jig, and after all, a chatterbait is just a bladed jig. So here, my drop rate, everything is pretty similar from one to the other. They make lighter, they make heavier. Mine preference is a 3/8 ounce. That's kind of what I go with, so yours might be a little bit different depending on how you feel about it. Colors, it's almost like with any other soft plastics. The green pumpkins, the watermelons, when the water's a lot clearer, I like to do that, a little more natural coloring. If I'm getting to that dingy, dirty water, hey, I'm like everybody else, blue-black. I love that blue-black color in that dingy water. It'll really stand out and give you a good profile that they can see, a good dark profile they can see in that dingy water. But hey, you can bring it out with, just like the spinnerbaits, you can bring it out here with some chartreuse and white. Just depends on your conditions that you're in from water conditions. Trailers, as I mentioned in the creature bait one, I like the bugs. I don't want to get a real long 5-inch creature bait on one of these. I like to keep it down to about a 3 or 3.5 inch, what I call a bug or a smaller bait. I feel that way you don't have quite so much hanging out beyond the hook that way, and they work in a lot better. Where am I going to fish it? Man, I'll tell you, any place. It doesn't really make much. I love going down the rocky banks, or I guess in my case here, it's broken up concrete banks. I love working a chatterbait along in there. The grassy areas, you can rip it through the grass also. A little tougher. Lily pads can be a little tough and hang on to it a little bit. So sometimes you can hang a little in there. But about anywhere you're going to throw anything else, you can throw a chatterbait. Now, I have one thing I do a little different. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know I make my own chatterbaits. I bought them. Now I'm buying jigs and buying the blades and making my own. But I make one that's a little bit different, and this one's got the exception where I'll use a creature bait. And what I've done here, they've got other videos on it. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, then maybe I can put a link down below. What I've done is I have a shaky head that's got the keeper, the screw keeper on the head. It's a 4/0 shaky head, and from that I put a chatterbait blade on it. Now, what that allows me to do is where I said I usually like to go with the shorter the bugs or this or that with the standard chatterbait. Here I can screw on a creature bait, bring it back, hook it weedless just like I would a Texas rig plastic worm or a Texas rig creature bait, and basically now I've ended up with a weedless chatterbait. I've got the same thing from the chatterbait going as I would right here, but I'm weedless. This tends to work a little better, those lily pads I mentioned, where I can have a little trouble hanging up in lily pads that are kind of tough, this and that. This is what gives me that opportunity. I can go to those lily pads, work it weedless, not hang up in them, and still get my chatterbait action around brush and brush piles. Cedar trees, stuff like that. Again, I got a better shot of not getting hung up with this than I would with this. So I did a video how I make these. Hopefully I'll remember when I go home to edit. I'll put in the description the link to the video that shows how I made the weedless chatterbait. The other nice thing, the chatterbait can be kind of versatile. Swim baits. early in the spring, I'll tend to use a lot of swim bait trailers when I'm starting out early in the spring. I know that's what I did here this spring. Matter of fact, with the shad here, I was using a white swim bait trailer, which was kind of odd for me. I don't usually do that, but most of the lakes I've usually fished didn't have shad. This one has them. I went with the white swim bait trailer, had a lot of success with that early in the season. So it's really versatile to allow you to do whatever you think you need to do. But that's it on the chatterbait, guys. Spring, fall, you know, summer it works. I tend to not use it nearly as much then, but fall is coming. So if you haven't been using a chatterbait, we're getting here to fall, now's the time. Pick up some, give them a shot, give them a try and see how they work for you. Hey, thanks for sticking with me. Subscribe to our channel if you would. Hope to see you again real soon.